So today what we're doing is practicing our urban sniping. This is one of the rangefinders I use. I like this one because it has a 1200 yard range. Up to 300 yards you can actually get the velocity of moving targets, and you can do slopes. So if you're taking a reading at something that's 1200 yards away and you're looking at it at an angle, that's going to give you a false reading for trajectory matching. So knowing the angle of incidence that you're sighting on helps you to correct distance errors. Now, I like using this when I go shopping or I'm riding around. Sometimes I'll practice taking some shots. If I have areas I frequent, which could be a security problem during SHTF, it's very easy to take this and make a range card. The most important thing on using a rangefinder is building your range estimation skills. So normally you can use the football field method, estimating in football fields. You can use half the distance. You can use quarter distance in order to build and find how far something is away. Now, what I would recommend is you go ahead and use those manual instinctive methods, including the finger methods where you're using different fingers for range estimation, and also using the size of objects. You can get a very good reading of distance if you use a standard item such as a light pole, the height of a car, the height of a human, the height of the first story of a building, the second story. If you get used to looking at those things at distance, you can estimate distances using those objects. So the best way to get an accurate practice and reduce the errors to use your rangefinder to correct your readings. So when you're 400 yards or meters from your target, the trajectory of your rounds starts to drop so fast that if you're off 100 yards or meters in your range estimation, you can easily miss the target. So keep that in mind. And most people will either overestimate or underestimate distance consistently. In my case, I overestimate distance. So a lot of times, if I think it's 400 meters, it may be 350. If I think it's 600 meters, it may be 500 meters. So you need to learn whether you overestimate or underestimate, and this is the tool to do it. It doesn't matter what brand, where you get your rangefinder, but please get one that goes out to at least 1200 meters. This is the most useful model, 1200 meter range. Now you can also use your rangefinder when you're navigating. I've used ranger beads quite a bit, and it's a pain in the butt keeping track of them by doing pace. So you can use this as a land navigation tool. And keep in mind, you can use halving and quarter distance methods of range estimation with a rangefinder. So if your rangefinder only goes to 1200 yards and you need to measure something further away than that, you can pick things that are a quarter of the distance you're trying to measure or half the distance you're trying to measure that with a rangefinder and double it or quadruple it, depending on what you're doing. So now we're going to do some test exercises while we're here at the mall. So today we're here doing a training op for urban sniping, and while we're at the shopping mall, what we're going to do is practice our range estimation skills. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is places you go to get supplies, you may want to practice your range estimation skills, because in these environments sometimes it's very difficult to accurately estimate ranges. So what we can do here is use the football field method, the halving method, and check our results using our rangefinder. Now, I want to reiterate, the rangefinder can be useful for urban sniping. It can be useful for construction activities and also land navigation. Now here, what I want you to notice is we have some very long stretches where you could have people and it's in between vehicles and stuff. So this adds to the complexity of using a rangefinder, because you're going to have to put the beam in between those cars to see all the way down to the other end. And what I want you to keep in mind is, if your rangefinder only goes to 600 yards or 800 yards, then what you can do is, if it's over that distance, you can use a halving method with your rangefinder. So what you would do is shoot a reading near the maximum range of your rangefinder, which would coincide with halfway or 25% of the distance you're trying to estimate. So I want to take and recommend to you that you get a rangefinder that's got at least a 1,200 yard range. So we're going to take a long shot here with the rangefinder. We want to go ahead and estimate how far we think that is to the other end of these parking lots, all the way down to the trees. Now I'm thinking to the first car at the end of this parking lot, that's probably 200, 220 yards. And then further down, that's probably another 500 yards. So let's take a shot with a rangefinder and see what we get. So on this one, we were off. We figured it was close to 750, 800 yards, but it was actually 600. So if we had it engaged at that distance, we would have shot way over top of the target. Because as you remember, once your trajectory gets beyond 300 or 400 yards, the amount of drop per 100 yards is so much, if you're off by 100 yards, you're gonna miss the target. So in this instance, we'd have missed the target. So what we'll do is move to another location and take another shot. But we did have a lot of difficulty getting a good shot with a rangefinder here, because we had so many trees and obstacles and vehicles that we couldn't get a good shot, and it took us quite a few tries to get the estimate we actually were looking for. Now we've gone to the other end of the shopping mall, and we have a road that's in between two parking lots. And basically the dark colored car in the center of the frame way down in the middle is roughly the halfway point in this parking lot. Now, judging from here, it looks to me like we have a much better chance of getting a good reading, because there's not a lot of obstructions around that car. And that car is roughly halfway of the distance to the other end of the parking lot. So let's say that we have an engagement distance at the car and an engagement distance of the trees way at the end of that other parking lot that we can see in front of those condos. So we'll use the halving method. We'll take a shot on that car, double it, and see if the rangefinder has a distance similar to where the trees are. So let's go ahead and take some shots and see what we come up with. So we went ahead with our rangefinder, took our shots. We found that that dark colored automobile was around 220 yards. And then the trees were around 440 yards. So we were correct. That was about half of the distance. Now, when I was taking shots to try to establish the range at those trees, I kept getting a lot of interference. So I got some short distance shots because of reflection off of some of the stuff down there. So it is important to take multiple shots. So please keep in mind, the rangefinder is a tool, and it is a key to your survival in urban and rural sniping situations. So if you were in this area collecting supplies, foraging, picking up people, whatever you were doing, you would want to build a range card to see how far away danger areas are. That way you can go ahead and dial those corrections into your weapons. So please rate, comment, subscribe. We'll see you on the next video.